Good evening, all of you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'm sure that you're having very interactive sessions so far, and thank you for the kind introduction, and it's been an honor to be here. So what I'm going to speak today, as was told to you, is on this whole thing about digitalization and payment revolution in India. And I'm from the Reserve Bank. I head one of the divisions in the research department. And I'm going to speak more broadly in terms of what's happened and what are we looking at, based on some of the research that we have done. And these are kind of questions that you can take back, or the broad messages that you can take back, so that when you go back to your realm, you're more informed. That's the purpose of my talk. And so let's start. And before start off, I have to give this customary kind of declaration that the views that I express here are of mine and should not be seen as the views of the Reserve Bank of India. That's part of our official protocol. So if we think about payments, go back to history. Payments have always been at the forefront of technology. If you take slint blades that was made by stones, they were the mode of payments in the Stone Age. Then you come to the Metal Age. The most precious metal became the form of payment. And you come to organized societies with kingdoms and a ruler. The stamp of the ruler became the source of payment. And then right now, if you ask, the most strong currency is the US dollar, because that's the strongest country as you see in the world. But then we are in the age of data, and as people say, data is gold, or data is oil, and data has become the latest form of payment. So this revolution this evolution of payments becoming digitized is not something new. Payments have always been, catching up with the latest form of technology. But what is more interesting is that an emerging economy, which is not where you're looking at the revolution to happen, has now become the gold standard in terms of payment revolution, and especially digitalization of payments. If you look at The Economist in 2023, they said that India has emerged as a global leader in digital payments technology. The World Bank says that India's digital transformation is a game changer for economic development. The RBI is a country's pillar. You can see that how this has happened. That traditionally every technology originates at the advanced world. We always look at the West, but now the West is looking at the East to learn. And as I've put it here, you have many countries where UPI is currently operationalized. Something which is originated here is now becoming global. And these are not only emerging economies, you're seeing many other countries also. Now, how does this happen? So when we look at the payment systems development in India, you can see that it's not just grown extensively, it has also grown very intensively. You have all the matrices, whether it's as a share of per thousand I just have an issue with looking in here, because I thought I'll see whether it's transactions per lakh, per capita, per value of digital transactions. Everything is going up quite significantly. And what we see is that at the Reserve Bank, we do something called the Digital Payments Index, which is we take 4 different parameters. We look at the enablers like Aadhaar and all of that. We look at the infrastructure. We look at the performance, and we'll also look at the customer experience and create an index. You can go to the RBI website and see that. And then we are like 4 times better than 2018 in terms of digital payments. And that's a rapid transformation. How did this happen? If you look at this, we have an innovation system, and it didn't happen overnight. We have a system that was put in place, and which was different than others, because traditionally innovations happen because you have an intellectual property regime, some companies invest in it, and then you have the profit as the major motive that generates innovations. But in this kind of innovation system, what we saw was that what we are seeing is that India's payment revolution is driven by 4 major conduits. You have the agents, like the consumers, commercial banks, the payment system operators. We have the institutions, the RBI, government, and the other institutions that are set up by RBI. And then the policy. And then we have the technology and infrastructure. So what we see as a global benchmark is not just an accident, but a coming together of all of them together. So that means that India has made the world realize that you can just create world standard infrastructure, not just by motive of profit alone, but also by putting together the right mechanisms that can actually generate such a synergy between all these agents. And how this synergy came? Agents leveraged on the existing structure and their reach. Institutions fostered innovations. Then the technology and infrastructure helped extending the reach. And then finally, policy acted as an enabler. So this kind of became a conduit that kind of gave you this great revolution where India has now become at the forefront at the payment revolution. Now, what facilitates adaptation of digital payments? What we see is that, different countries have different levels of adaptation, but some of the research that we have done at the RBI, we see that the digital payments are boosted by, if you look at the cross-country setting, that internet penetration, of course, formalization of the economy, more formal economies have higher digital payments. Then you have presence of bank branches influences the extent of digital payments, and then younger generations. But strikingly, it's being a developing country gives you a greater advantage to have digital payments. And this is, the reason why it comes is the advanced economies already have some form of payments with which people are used to, like if you go to the US, credit cards or checks are very, prevalent, and we developing countries are mostly cash-based. So what has happened is that because of the efficiency gains are so large, the movement to digital payment infrastructure was faster in emerging economy case. So being at a low level of development is not so bad because you have larger incentives to move in, and then you just caught up with the latest technology. So that's something which is really interesting. And then, this has also led to a large reduction in cash usage. And then you see that the growth in currency in circulation in India has been much lower than the growth in the digital forms of payments, and then that has an impact for reduction in money demand. Like I'm from the RBI, and we are the RBI is the supplier of money, and we have a lot of policy implications when money demand is falling because we use money and the price of money, which is the interest rate, to steer the economy. So these are the implications that I'm not going to get into because we have limited time, but I want to tell you that these are the larger changes in which we are operating. Now let me just take to some of the things from the user perspective. We've done a survey of about 95,000 individuals in close coordination with NPCI, and what we have found, this survey was about a year back, and what we have found is that the awareness about digital payments in India varies from about 93% in some states to 60% across states. And overall, we see that 77% of the people were aware about digital payments in India, even taking the rural area. This is a huge awareness. And of which about 44% have adopted it. And those who have adopted it, about 44%, about 36%, 1/3 of the people are still using it. Two takeaways from here. Once you use it, you're continuing to use it. That's why 44 and 36 are much closer than the 77 and 44, which means that even you push someone to use it, they might keep it. And that's one. And the second thing is that 36 is still very low. Then there is a lot more to go in the digital payment landscape in India in terms of the reach. So these are the implications that we see from there. And then we see that the awareness is much higher among the males than the females. That's something which we need to think about. We don't want money or payment to be gender differentiating. So we need to kind of think about policies that should address these concerns. Let me just get to another thing that I just wanted to talk about. Okay, impact of digital payments on system level efficiency. Like, as central bankers, we look at larger macro picture, not just one entity. One of the things that we are very much interested is how it's affecting financial inclusion. One of the kind of criticisms or the points that people usually make about financial inclusion initiatives in India was that people did not find a reason to hold a bank account. Like, if you are a daily wage earner, you don't have a reason to hold a bank account. So even if you open a Jan Dhan account, they're going to keep it as a zero balance. But now, with digital payments coming in, you have another incentive to have a bank account because you are part of a larger ecosystem which is giving you a greater efficiency. And that's creating. And then once you start putting in money, you realize the other benefits that are coming in. This is actually enhancing the system level efficiency that we have. And the second thing that we have is it improves credit assessment. Like, say, for example, the unorganized sector vendors, they don't have any history or the collateral to lend into. As they form part of the digital ecosystem, you would have their histories built up, and if you see that, if they have credit score, and then that kind of gets in. So you are actually creating collateral for people who otherwise could not come in, and then that's a kind of a spillover, an external benefit that you're getting because you're part of this ecosystem. And finally, which is one of the most important thing, is that we are also seeing a situation where a lot of the direct benefits are now directly going in. And if you remember, there used to be stories about every 1 rupee spent, only so many paisa reaches the final beneficiary in terms of government benefit transfers. Digital payment ecosystem is giving you this benefit that's very important. And the estimates show that, up to March 2023, and I couldn't find an update of this estimate from the government side, but 3.49 lakh crore is the estimated benefits saved because you could directly transfer the funds to the beneficiaries. These include, weeding out duplicate accounts, making efficient payments, all of that kind of comes here. Now, all this is a rosy picture, but what do we go from here in terms of challenges in the digital payment landscape and way forward? I just want to kind of list some of the challenges that we face at the broad level, at the national level, as we are embarking on this journey. The first challenge I want to talk about is financial literacy. India is still trying to get a universal literacy, so financial literacy is still pretty low, and we don't have much studies after 2019. That time it was 27% financial literacy, but it would have gone larger by now, but the levels could be much lower. There is a large scope for increasing financial literacy because to use digital payments, you need financial literacy. And the way forward would be having targeted programs for financial inclusion, and Reserve Bank has been doing quite a lot of that using financial literacy programs. So financial literacy would be very important if you're thinking about moving into a digital payments and fostering it. Second thing that I want to talk about is digital divide. Digital divide could be in the form of internet penetration. So of course, internet has had a pervasive effect in India, but it's still lower than the global average, and there's a lot of difference between rural and urban areas. Remember, I already told you that we don't want payments to have any kind of differentiation between region X versus region Y. We don't want that to happen. So for that, we need the infrastructure to come up. We also need new solutions, say, for example, where internet connection is not so stable. Say, RBI has tried with the offline UPI of the NPCI, and efforts are coming in, but these are the challenges that we face when we're thinking about moving into a digital payment ecosystem. And then the consumer protection. Of course, this is very key, and all of you would have heard these messages these days whenever you're trying to make a phone call, because, phishing, wishing, malware, and fraud attempts, all of this is coming in because, as the public sector and as the the ecosystem is trying to innovate on to improve efficiency, there's also another set of innovations that are happening, how to misuse that to kind of take away the resources of the people. It has always been happening. Like, gold, it was happening there. Currency, it was happening there. It'll happen here also. The challenge is to always stay one step ahead and then increase awareness, strengthen cybersecurity. I'm sure you would have discussed about these things, awareness campaigns and fraud detection systems where AI can play a major role in the days to come, and that's what we feel. Now, let me just also touch upon the scalability issues because, already UPI has grown so big and the other frame. But then if we are to grow faster, we need to make sure that we have the robust infrastructure, prevent slowdown and outages, and then invest in scalable payment solutions. I'm sure this summit would be talking about some of that, bringing in different players together and, making sure that we have solutions that are tailored to reduce the scalability issues. Finally, let me also talk about dark patterns in digital payments. You could be thinking about hidden fees, forced subscriptions. All of you would have faced all of that, false urgency. If you don't pay now, you're gone, all of those things. But stronger consumer protection laws and digital literacy programs could help you there. Overall, we are in a revolution. Maybe all of you would have forgotten about how much currency you were using 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and the number of travels that you were making to ATMs now have come down quite a lot. Behind our own consciousness, we have moved to a lot of digital currency, but we need to become more conscious about which world we are in and think about the solutions that we need to think about. Thank you.